I can say I forgive these people who murdered my daughter, but of course, unless they repent and apologize and receive that forgiveness, it doesn't do them any good at all. Helga, she was 19, and she was a very bubbly and lively young lady. She was a very committed Christian. She'd been home for 1 week, by the way, from America. I had taken her down to Heathrow, and I kissed her goodbye and said, don't forget to call your mum before you board the plane. I got back home, had some supper. The phone rang, and it was an old widow lady in our church. And she said, oh, Pastor, did Helga get away all right? So I said, well, yes, Winnie, thanks very much. Why? Well, she said, because there's been an aeroplane that's crashed in Scotland. And I turned on the television, I called my wife and my son, and there was a news flash, 5 to 9, that, and pictures of Lockerbie in flames, you know. And then they said, Pan Am, Flight 103. And my wife straight away said, that's Helga's plane. And our son was saying, no, 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 no. And my wife was just saying, Helga, Helga, Helga. You know, the time that her little girl needed her most, she wasn't able to be there. And I stood there, and there were no words coming at all.
The first evidence that we found that showed it was an airliner was the empty containers, the food containers, you know, plastic, knives, forks, spoons, the bread rolls, these were lying about. My nephew found a passport. We go and find, first of all, how your family is. But by the time we got down to Main Street, the police had actually evacuated all people that were near the site. There's really not much you could do. The first victims that I saw, and the first victim I saw, we checked to see if there was a pulse, but they were obviously dead. Like.
My pager went off and it said, major incident. I walked into the centre of Lockerbie and I kicked something, and I looked down and it was a piece of metal. The overall smell was aviation spirit, aviation fuel burning. The sound of helicopters rotating over the houses, trying to find out what was going on, trying to recover bodies. Groups of local people standing just stunned. They would have given their lives to help survivors, but there was nobody to survive. They didn't know what had happened. They had no comprehension as to what had happened. It was total and utter chaos.
Tien jaar na dato is de waarheid omtrent de bomaanslag nog steeds in nevelen gehuld.
The truth, there are only two truths about Lockerbie right now. There was a bomb, it exploded, and in fact the third truth, 270 people died. Other than that, it's all supposition.
That's not much after almost 10 years.
10 years and $17 million. They deserve better.
De aanslag wordt in eerste instantie toegedicht aan Iran. In 1991, 3 jaar later, worden plotseling 2 Libiërs als daders aangewezen. Als gevolg daarvan krijgt Libië internationale sancties opgelegd. De 2 verdachten nemen de Schotse strafrechtadvocaat Alistair Duff in de arm.
There are no particularly odd ethical considerations associated with this case. In a sense, it's a normal case. I act for the 2 clients, Mr. Megrahi, Mr. Fima. I give them advice.
When they offer you the case, how long did you have to think about it to accept it?
Well, I didn't have to think about it at all to accept it. I wasn't given any length of time to make my mind up. There was never any question, having been asked to become involved in the case, there was never any question but that I would.
We charge that 2 Libyan officials, acting as operatives of the Libyan intelligence service, planted and detonated the bomb that destroyed Pan Am Flight 103.
To be honest, the most that I can say is that both of them deny any involvement in the Lockerbie bombing. Both of them deny that they have ever been members of the Libyan intelligence services.
Hoe kan het dat het toestel dat 2 weken voor de bomaanslag nog is volgeboekt, tijdens de ramp slechts voor 2/3 vol is? Hooggeplaatste personen blijken van het toestel te zijn gehaald.
Weather warnings. I have details of at least 10. There was a very explicit one on the bulletin board of the American Embassy in Moscow, which advised people from traveling on Pan Am from Frankfurt to America over the period of the 21st of December.
In het memo, gedateerd 13 december 1988, opgesteld door de Amerikaanse regering aan al het ambassadepersoneel, wordt de bomaanslag op een Pan Am-toestel van Frankfurt naar Amerika aangekondigd. Daarom wordt hen afgeraden met deze luchtvaartmaatschappij te vliegen. De Schotse parlementariër Tam Dagiel vindt dat de waarheid over het achterhouden van deze waarschuwingen boven water moet komen.
Can you imagine reaction in the United States and the public opinion there if they had learnt that there was sufficient knowledge to pull very important people off the plane for the Moscow embassy and let the kids travel to their death?
The coping is on a day-to-day basis. And there were bad days, and still are occasionally, not so often now. But there are bad days, and we struggle the same as anybody else.
Still.
It's affected me more emotionally. I had a little bit of not a full-blown breakdown, but a couple of years ago, situations arose that I couldn't handle, that I normally would have handled, and had to take a break from my church. But we feel God has helped us marvelously to be positive in it all.
Een week geleden, minister van Aartsen van Buitenlandse Zaken tekent een overeenkomst met Groot-Brittannië om het proces tegen de 2 Libiërs in Nederland te laten plaatsvinden. En wel in Soesterberg, op de voormalige Amerikaanse vliegbasis. Dat het zo lang heeft geduurd ligt niet aan de Libiërs, zegt Robert Black. Hij heeft in 1993 al geadviseerd om het proces in een ander land, bij voorkeur Nederland, te houden. En wel onder Schots recht. Black ontmoette afgelopen week de Libische leider Gaddafi.
May I say that the Colonel Gaddafi, said to me in our meeting that if the Libyans had been convinced that the scheme for trial in the Netherlands was a genuine scheme, not one which had been designed deliberately with pitfalls in it for his government and his citizens, these 2 men would already be en route to Holland. These were his very words, and he said them in English. They would today be en route to Holland.
Vandaag heeft Libië bekendgemaakt niet akkoord te zullen gaan met de keuze van Soesterberg. Libië is bang dat de verdachten alsnog zullen worden uitgeleverd aan Schotland of de Verenigde Staten, ondanks de gesloten verdragen.
Once these people arrive in the Netherlands, what is to prevent Britain and the Netherlands saying, we will alter this agreement and provide for their extradition to the United States or to Scotland itself? Now, you may say, of course the British government and the Dutch government would not be so underhand. They would not dream of doing such a thing. You may think that. I may think that. Colonel Gaddafi has no such confidence in my government or in your government. And what he wants is that possibility to be excluded in the treaty. And I must say, it does not seem to me to be an unreasonable thing to ask.
Ook speelt voor de Libische leider Gaddafi een belangrijke rol dat de Amerikanen toch nog een band blijken te hebben met Soesterberg. Er ligt namelijk een verdrag dat ze ieder jaar 4 weken mogen oefenen. En verder mogen ze in crisistijd 2 squadrons jachtvliegtuigen op de vliegbasis stationeren.
There was still, of course, a worry, about a hit squad or a snatch team perhaps coming in. But the airfield solution seemed initially to be a very neat solution to that particular problem.
Initially.
Initially, that's right. As you know, certain difficulties over that scheme have now arisen, particularly over the fact that there is still a small but nevertheless a continuing American link to that base.
Vrijwel niemand hier in Schotland denkt intussen dat de zaak tegen de 2 Libische verdachten hout zal snijden.
The case that they claim is watertight, that the Crown Office, the legal department in Edinburgh, claim that they have, doesn't exist in the form that they claim to have. And my suspicion has been for a long time that the last thing certain people in British and America, specifically the legal department in Edinburgh, want is any kind of a trial, because the poverty of their evidence would be exposed.
The nearest we have come to anger is with our Western governments. We know terrorists put bombs on planes. That's what they do. It's not good, it's not right, but it's what they do. But we do expect some higher level of integrity from our Western governments, and we haven't had it.